Srila Prabhupada ki. So, we now move on to our next session. And before we do, I'd also like to acknowledge that we're very grateful and we are very fortunate to have the association of His Holiness Badrinarayan Maharaj, who is here at the back. So Badrinarayan Maharaj has been an incredible leader and servant of Krishna consciousness for many, many years. And he sets a very good example to all of us. And we're so fortunate that you could be here, Maharaj. And thank you for joining us at this occasion and give us your blessings.
All I can say is may your words someday come true.
So can we please welcome Badrinarayan Maharaj in our traditional style, left hand in the air, right hand in the air, and very loudly, so the neighbors can hear us with 3 loud Haribols. 3, 2, 1. Haribol! Louder! Haribol! Louder! Haribol! His Holiness Badrinarayan Maharaj ki. But we are also blessed to have another incredible leader, one that I myself have been fortunate enough to see a lot more in London. Growing up, an incredible inspiration and mentor to many, many people. And of course, Maharaj took sannyas a few years ago, but I can guarantee you that for the past few decades, there has been no change in his words, his character, his dedication to devotion.
That's the problem.
No, that's not a problem. And his way of presenting Krishna consciousness. So we're very fortunate to have Maharaj with us. Another quick announcement before we begin the session. We also have another surprise guest that we have. So there'll be a surprise session. That's Ganasham Priya Prabhu at the back. So, yes. And Ganasham Priya Prabhu, popularly known as Jay Shetty on the internet. Fortunate that you could be here with us as well. So thank you for driving down from sunny LA to be here. But we'll be doing a surprise session / Q&A later on after Maharaj's session. But there is a request that, of course, because Ganasham Priya Prabhu is a popular personality, we can, of course, he's happy to take photos and stuff like that. I know people have asked, but if we could strictly avoid any video recording of any of the sessions, because he wants to be transparent and open about his Krishna consciousness and his experiences. So that's just a request for that, please. Does that make sense? Yeah? That's not too much to ask. But of course, now we're bringing ourselves to diving deeper into a spiritual adventure. And we have a wonderful leader who's going to be closing out the 3 keynotes, the final keynote titled Give Back, Take Up a Mission. The idea of how can we commit to Krishna consciousness, how can we take up dynamic responsibilities and projects and services and really find our offering to Krishna in this lifetime. And does anyone have the booklet? Priya, can I borrow your booklet? And this has been something that I showed you earlier, but this is a theme of the retreat. And it's a quote from Srila Prabhupada at the back. And Prabhupada said it, His Holiness Bhakti Swami used to say it a lot, and our beloved temple president at the manor, who sadly passed away a few years ago, also used to say it a lot. And that quote is, "You've had so many lives, just give this one for Krishna. Then you may do whatever you want, but this one is for Krishna." So with that mood, please can we welcome His Holiness Svayam Bhagavan Keshava Swami Maharaj with our left hand in the air, our right hand in the air, and let it reach the ceiling. 3 very, very loud Haribols. His Holiness Svayam Bhagavan Keshava Swami Maharaj ki. Over to you, Maharaj.
Thank you so much. So happy to be here with all of you. It's beautiful energy, beautiful time we have this opportunity together. My respects to Maharaj and all the other wonderful Vaishnavas here. They're all my inspirations. All of you are my inspirations. And let us see where we go. Srila Prabhupada's mission to inundate the whole world with the beauty of Krishna Prem, and let's see if we can all play some small part in that great adventure. Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari Gopi Jana Yashodanandana Gaja Janaranjana Yashodan Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Yamuna Tiravanachari Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Radha Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari Gopi Jana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Yamuna Tiravanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Srila Prabhupada ki Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalan Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So taking up a mission in Krishna consciousness. When I was 21, then I was thinking at that time of joining as a brahmachari. And you know, you can imagine that had its own challenges, walking away from everything and making a decision like that. So different devotees were giving me different pieces of advice. One brahmachari, he came to me and he said, it's clear. Better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. So I was like, what does it mean? You telling me to get married? And he said, no, give it a risk, just do it. And if it doesn't work out, don't worry. You always have to just give it a try. Don't let your decisions reflect your fears. Let your decisions reflect your dreams. So give it a go, he said. Anyway, it came to the point where at one point there was 15 devotees in a room who were trying to convince me, like, do it, do it, do it. So as they were convincing me there, I was kind of, well, what to say? I was kind of liking the attention. I was like, yeah, maybe these guys have spotted something in me. Like, clearly, I am something special here. Of course, they have spotted my potential. They've scouted me out from the crowd. Anyway, as that session ended, everyone was walking out and one devotee was left and he said, just wait here, I got something to tell you. So the whole room cleared out and then he told me to sit down. So I sat next to him. And then he said something which has stayed with me since that day, and something which in that moment, it completely humbled me and it inspired me at the same time. And he sat me down and he said, look, this Krishna consciousness movement is going to spread whether you join or not. And then he said, but do you want to be part of the adventure? And I was like, sign me up. And it was very beautiful, because in that moment I realized that in this movement, in one sense, nobody is necessary. But in another sense, everyone is useful. Everyone has an opportunity. And that's what stands before each one of us. Each one of us have the opportunity to be alive, to be active, to be involved in this beautiful movement, which is really bringing something to the world that everyone is looking for. You know, it's such a beautiful thing to be part of something which changes people's lives. Like, what could be more beautiful than doing something in your life which actually changes other people's lives? It's just the most beautiful thing. And we have something that, as I mentioned, everyone is looking for. So some people think Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes ended 500 years ago. That's a lie. Because Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Adya piha shay leela kaha gaura roy, kona kona bhagyavan dekhi bada poi. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes are going on even today. Kona kona bhagyavan, but who is that fortunate person? That fortunate person, dekhi bada poi. They can see all the magic, all the miracles, all the most mystical and memorable things happening before their eyes. If we all become participants in that movement of love. So here we are today talking about taking up a mission and our opportunity to be part of that. But I just want to begin by asking all of you a question, and you can be, and please do be, as honest as you like. When we say the word preach, yes, those 5 letters, P-R-E-A, 6 letters, P-R-E-A-C-H, preach. What's the kind of first thing that comes to your mind? It could be the good, the bad, or the ugly. Can you shout out some ideas for me? What's the first thing that comes to your mind when I say the word preach? Share. Okay, share. Oh, shada. Okay. Okay. Share and shada. Okay. You guys should talk to each other. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Book distribution. Okay. Yeah. What else? A cult. Conversion. Judgment. Convince. Sell. God. Okay. Dialogue. Okay, good. Others? I just want you to think, what image comes to your mind? Creating awareness. Okay. Teaching. Salvation. I will save you. Philosophy. More? I want images. What image? If I asked you to image preaching in your mind, what does that look like to you in your mind's eye? Yeah. Holier than thou. Pushy. Bible and a cross. No offense against anyone. Streets. Shops. Classrooms. Megaphones. Okay. Yeah, now we're getting into it. Flyers you don't want. Singing and dancing. Brahmachari is, oh my God, wow, okay. Cookies. It's interesting, isn't it? You know, like when I think of the word preach, or when I think of preaching, I feel like in the name of preaching, I've seen the best and the worst of the Krishna consciousness movement. I feel like in the name of preaching, I've had the deepest experiences and sometimes the most disappointing experiences. It's interesting that preaching as a word, it kind of carries different things in our minds because of what we've experienced, either of being preached to, of being part of preaching. And so the first thing I want to share with all of you is that our experience of preaching is very much to do with our experience of the Krishna consciousness movement and our experience and vision of what Krishna consciousness is. Can we just draw two columns? Maybe you can just put a line there. Just put a line there. And then another two columns. Yeah, there, exactly. And on one hand, I want to put the words dogmatic religion. And on the other side, I want to put dynamic spirituality. And I was just thinking about this on the plane here. Like, for me, what is the difference between a dogmatic religion and a dynamic spirituality? And if we experience Krishna consciousness as a dogmatic religion, then I think we tend to see preaching in a very different way, and we tend to preach in a very different way. And if we're able to experience and practice Krishna consciousness as a dynamic spirituality, then I think the whole concept of being on a mission to go out there and do something in the world becomes very, very different. So these are some words I came up with. See if they kind of maybe trigger something within you. For me, dogmatic religion is intimidation, whereas dynamic spirituality is inspiration. Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains that people take up religion for different, on the basis of different triggers. And he says the lowest trigger for someone to take up a religious practice is fear. So sometimes even we have experienced a little bit of that we've kind of practicing out of fear, or someone incited fear within us, either consciously, knowingly, or unknowingly. And oftentimes this is what we fall back on sometimes to convince people. Whereas dynamic spirituality is all about inspiration, it's all about vision, it's all about awakening what's within you. It's about opening the heart. For me, dogmatic religion is pride, whereas dynamic spirituality is humility. It's interesting when a devotee asked Srila Prabhupada, how should we distribute books? Then Srila Prabhupada's answer was interesting. He quoted this famous verse by Prabodhananda Saraswati, where he says, he goes to someone and he says, you're amazing, you know so much, you're such a scholar, you've achieved so much in your life. Now, can you kind of like forget about it and take this up? Take up Lord Chaitanya's teachings. But Srila Prabhupada very much showed that preaching is about endearing oneself, connecting, not putting oneself above someone else. Sometimes we don't like this kind of idea of preaching, someone put it here, holier than thou, because we think when we're preaching, what we're actually doing is we're putting ourselves above others, or we're kind of in some way establishing superiority. When actually preaching can be something which can be done in an incredibly humble mood, and when done in that way, it touches people and moves people in a different way. I put here defeat. Dogmatic religion is about defeating. whereas dynamic spirituality is about empowering. Sometimes there's a sense when we join a group that it's, or when we're preaching, that it's us against them. I win, they lose. When actually a devotee is not actually trying to defeat anyone. What a devotee is trying to do is go into someone's life and just give them something that will empower and uplift and elevate them in their life. It's interesting, sometimes Srila Prabhupada wasn't even so concerned that people take up the identity of being a devotee necessarily. He was just happy if he could contribute something to them being more sincere, more genuine, more pure in what they themselves were doing. And so for Srila Prabhupada, it really wasn't about defeating people, but rather it was about empowering. Another one I have here is rigid versus dynamic. Sometimes our experience of Krishna consciousness is that it can be very rigid, sometimes feels a bit archaic, sometimes things are said, philosophies are espoused, worldviews are given which we just feel are not relevant in the world anymore. And sometimes people also teach Krishna consciousness in that way. Whereas when we see how Srila Prabhupada, what was his power in bringing Krishna consciousness all over the world, is he was able to take ancient truths and make them very, very relevant, make them very, very applicable for the world we're living in today. Another one I have here is monologue as opposed to dialogue. Sometimes we think of preaching as kind of a one-way thing. We kind of go into an arena and we know what we want to say, we know what we want to achieve, and we know what we want that person to do at the end. And there's very, very little room for interaction. There's very, very little room for actually understanding. But it's interesting, if you look at all of our scriptures, then practically all of them are in the form of dialogue. There's back and forth. Srila Prabhupada, in fact, encouraged people to ask questions. And that was part of him helping them to actually absorb this in a deeper way. And so, again, when we see preaching as a dialogue, it kind of takes on a different perception in our mind. Dogmatic religion tells you what to think, but dynamic spirituality is about empowering people in how to think. Isn't it beautiful at the end of the Gita, after Krishna has given all the knowledge to Arjuna, then he tells him, Vimrashetad asheshena yatechasi tatha kuru. Now you think about it, now you reflect on it, now you analyze everything I've said, challenge it, contemplate on it, reflect on it, and then do what you want to do. In other words, perhaps this is a fault of our educational system nowadays. I feel like I went to university and it was just about memorizing stuff. And I don't know how much it really made me think. So what we're really trying to do when we share Krishna consciousness is awaken an inquisitiveness. Einstein said, never stop thinking. Curiosity has its own reason for existing. So again, this is another kind of distinction. Here's another one I came up with. Commandments versus choices. It's interesting, if you look at Krishna's strategy in the Bhagavad Gita, he does say what he feels the best thing to do is, but then he gives choices and he says you can go in these directions. And therefore, in one sense, if we look at the Bhagavad Gita, it's not really a book of commandments, it's a book of choices, When you give commandments, then even if people follow, they become followers. But when you give choices and they make a conscious choice after discriminating themselves, then what you do is you don't create followers, you create more leaders. You create people who are actually absorbing this in a deeper space within their consciousness. Dogmatic religion is superficial knowledge, whereas dynamic spirituality is genuine realization. And this is also really, really beautiful. Like when they say you can't take the world to a higher place than what you've reached internally yourself. So when we go out in the world having experienced something, having elevated our own consciousness, then what happens is when we share with people, it's much more natural, it's much more fluid, and it actually touches people in a deeper way. And so a lot of dogmatic religion is just narrative. It's just repeating things without people actually thinking about it, without people actually applying it, without people actually having challenged that and actually really question themselves like, do I believe in this? What does this mean for me? And then the final one I had was dogmatic religion is a change of identity, whereas dynamic spirituality is a change of heart. It's transformational. For me, what separates Krishna consciousness from religion is that it has transformational power. When a reporter asked Srila Prabhupada, can you show me a miracle? Then what was Srila Prabhupada's answer? He pointed to all his disciples and he said, they are the miracle. In other words, the transformation that a spiritual process can exact within an individual is proof that it's dynamic spirituality. Our desires change, our character changes, our aspirations change, our vision changes. So many things change, and therefore we can understand that this is something deeper than just dogma. So the reason I'm sharing this with you is because here I could give a whole thing on why we should all take up the mission and why it's everything, you know, it's the most amazing thing in the world, which it is. But what I really feel is that when we experience Krishna consciousness as a dynamic spirituality, then what happens is to share Krishna consciousness and to share it in an inspiring, dynamic and powerful way, which will really create an impression on the world. To some extent, that just becomes, for me, effortless. It just becomes something which just happens almost automatically. I think the techniques and the strategies of how to spread the Krishna consciousness movement, I think that's the easy part. I think the difficult part is to actually experience the experience that we're trying to give to others. If we have actually experienced the very thing that we're trying to share with others, the experience that we're trying to awaken within them, then I think that preaching just becomes effortless. And for me, Srila Prabhupada is the kind of prime example of this. So what I want you to do just for a couple of minutes is just turn to the person next to you and just kind of reflect on these two kind of columns. And what I want you to kind of just discuss with each other is when you've been out sharing Krishna consciousness in the world, or when you've had any experience, what have you felt it to be, more on the left or more on the right? And just share with each other what your hopes are for the future in terms of how you feel you could kind of share Krishna consciousness in this dynamic way. So if you just share with each other and just kind of reflect on this for a couple of minutes, and then what we'll kind of do is we'll kind of open up and see whether you may have some points of discussion, or you may have anything you want to ask, or yeah. And one other thing I want you to share with each other is what is your block? If you feel there's a block that stops you from kind of sharing Krishna consciousness in the world, what is that block? What's stopping you? Yeah? So can I ask you to do that for a couple of minutes, and then we'll kind of come back. That's it. I know. I just wanted to make sure that and also, I apologize for throwing this in front of you. Oh, no, that's fine. So I just thought to start more general like this.
Amazing, this is perfect. Whatever you're doing is perfect. Mind you know better than all of us, so whatever you...
The other things will come, yeah, just...
This is so important. No, this is amazing. Whichever direction you want to take it, Marge.
Okay.
So Marge, you wanted people to share, so shall we go around with mics?
Yeah,
well?
okay. Yeah. Okay, I'll give you guys 2 more minutes. All right, maybe we can get everyone back. So this was just an opportunity for all of you to kind of just think about this a little bit. And then I thought now we can just kind of open it up and see, whether you have any reflections on anything that's said so far. Maybe you may want to share some of your blocks. Maybe you have some questions that you'd like to ask on preaching and sharing Krishna consciousness. So anyone want to kind of kick us off and break the ice? Yes, thank you.
Lalita?
My group talked about how when we have conversations with friends, a lot of times it becomes difficult when someone has had a negative experience with religion or with something that's gone on in their personal lives. Because when you have those conversations, you can't negate the experiences of that person, and you need to kind of validate them and tell them, I understand that what you've been through is difficult. But at the same time, it's hard to carefully tread around the fact that they've had one bad experience, but that doesn't mean, like, it's kind of what Radha Bhakti was saying earlier, you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. There's one bad experience, but that doesn't mean everything is fake or everything is not valuable. And so I think that's kind of one of the main things that we were talking about.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. This is such an important lesson that and it works in multiple ways, that our experience with someone preaching to us, or our experience in terms of being out there in the world preaching to others, those experiences really stay with us. And they really do give us a certain lens through which we see that activity moving forward. They have this concept of anchoring bias. So the first way in which you experience or see or perceive something really sticks with you. And so this is also a lesson for us in kind of sharing Krishna consciousness and sharing spirituality with the world. That His Grace Vaisheshika Prabhu always says this, that always leave people with a good impression. That has to be the bottom line. And then other things on top of that, for sure. But if we would just do that, then not only would it be so much more rewarding for us, but it would also be so much more powerful in terms of sharing Krishna consciousness with others. So sometimes people ask me to define preaching. And for me, preaching just means one thing, which is bringing someone closer to Krishna. And that could be done in multiple ways, but sometimes what we have is a set idea in our mind of what it means to bring someone closer to Krishna. And we have a very defined kind of criteria. But preaching can take place in many, many ways, and perhaps the most simple and foundational way is to just leave people with a good impression, leave people with a favorable kind of experience. So, thank you so much. Yes.
Thank you for the exercise, Maharaj. We were sharing, and one thing came up. I grew up in India, and I've received both kinds of preaching. And I was drawn to the dogmatic side, so much so that when I started to preach, and I used to have a program, I would get lists of people. And soon the attendance would start to go down as programs continued. And I remember sending out messages to everyone that death can come anytime, but you can come at 5 p.m. And I was reflecting with Kapi here that I tried to connect my family, and then because I was coming from this fear-based approach, and I would make them watch videos of hell and blast fifth canto and then nobody.
I think we've got our outreach champion for TSI.
and never was there a connection up until when I came to the West and kind of started to make little movements towards the right side, understanding that it's a choice. And because I felt that, I don't have a choice, to coming to the point that, I actually do have some choice in Krishna consciousness. And I noticed the difference with my family. The same family that would run away from me now started to open up a little bit more, and then ended up coming to Vrindavan for my wedding and all of that. So just realizing that, how that shift happened. The question that I have that comes up for me is that I was very upfront back in the day. This is what Prabhupada says, this is what Krishna says. without any realization and just regurgitating and repeating. And now, on the other side of the spectrum, I'm too terrified now to even say anything. I understand the choice, and so now it's the other way, where now I feel that maybe if I share something vulnerably and from my heart, it would get somewhere. But then there's this fear that because of all the damage that I've done in the past. And so I wanted to see if there's a way to reconcile this and then to move forward.
Yeah, thank you so much. So many thoughts were coming to my mind when you were speaking. And I think the first thing is that in Krishna consciousness, there is room for strong speaking. A Vaishnava is defined, Vajradapi Kathorani Mriduni Kusumadapi. That a Vaishnava can be stronger than a thunderbolt and at the same time softer than a rose. So there is also there's a place for strong speaking, strong words. That also is one of the toolkits that that's something in the toolkit of someone sharing Krishna consciousness. What we're really talking about is if those strong words come from this space of dynamic spirituality, then those strong words are actually used very, very powerfully. Sometimes we also say you raise the volume of the words by raising the value of the words. And so, we can also, if it's coming from a very, very genuine space, then there is also kind of room for that. Another thing is that Jiva Goswami, he talks about Shraddha, and he explains there are different types of Shraddha. This is another way to see preaching. What preaching is basically doing is increasing people's faith. And he explains there are broadly three kinds of faith. Lokika Shraddha on one end of the scale, and Svabhaviki Shraddha or Shastriya Shraddha on the other side of the scale. So Lokika Shraddha means a type of worldly kind of cultural faith where someone's just doing it because of convention or because of social pressure or whatever it may be. And Svabhaviki or Shastriya Shraddha is when one is doing it out of genuine appreciation and understanding and knowledge. But the interesting thing is Jiva Goswami says there's a Shraddha which is in the middle, which is known as Baladut Padita Shraddha. And Baladut Padita Shraddha means that kind of faith which is almost forced within someone by the enigmatic words of another person. And oftentimes what you find is that spiritual traditions and ideas spread because of this Baladut Padita Shraddha. Someone is very charismatic, very convinced, and what they do is they speak enigmatically and then they instill a faith within someone which is higher than a cultural faith, but which isn't actually a natural faith. And therefore that kind of faith usually breaks down, and people who take up something based on that kind of transmission eventually end up kind of leaving as well. So yes, to really share Krishna consciousness in a way that it touches someone and that they take it up in a deep way is a long process, and it's not something which can be just done like enigmatically like that. Thank you. Yes.
I feel like it's really difficult to package information, and then there's also like a lack of knowledge.
So you feel like there's beautiful things in Krishna consciousness that you'd like to share, but you find it difficult packaging it and presenting it to people in a way that they can accept it. Yeah, is that right? Thank you so much. That's such a nice point. Sometimes I feel like we speak in front of audiences, we're behind the mic every day. But what I feel is most important for me is the time I spend individually with people. When I speak to people, when I feel the pulse, when I understand what they're going through, what their needs, their interests, their concerns, what their hopes, their fears are, I feel like then what happens is when I come then to present Krishna consciousness, I'm just able to be more relevant, more pointed, more kind of inspiring. Because making Krishna consciousness relevant means we have to know the Shastra on one side, very deeply. And on the other side, we have to know people. And sometimes those who are sharing may do one of the two. They know the Shastras really well, but they haven't taken the time to really understand the people. Or they're kind of very much in touch with the trends and the kind of things going on in the world, but they haven't deeply internalized what we're actually trying to teach people. And so when both of those things are present, then what happens is we find ways in which to kind of address everything that everyone's looking for. Nowadays I'm at airports a lot, so I always go in the bookshop and I see what kind of things people are reading. And it's beautiful because actually everyone's looking for things which are talked about in Shastra. And if we're just able to break it down for people and not just tell them what they're supposed to do, but really break it down for them and give the why, and then also the exact what they, like the how, like the day-to-day stuff. When we're able to do that, then people will be much more inclined to like interface and interact with it. So if you want to make Krishna consciousness relevant, we have to invest on both of those sides. Really try to understand. Einstein, he said, you'll know that something is the truth because it will have two characteristics. It will be simple and it will be beautiful. He said the truth is simple and beautiful. And this is my experience of Shastra, that when I've got deeper and deeper into Shastra, then I've actually understood that this is actually very, very simple. And it's actually very, very beautiful. They say if you can't explain something, I think someone says that, right? If you can't explain it to a 5-year-old, you don't know it well enough. There's a sense in which when we really understand something deeply, it becomes very simple and beautiful. And on the other side, really try to understand people. Like what is it that they're looking for? And how does that connect to what we're offering in Shastra, like that? Some thoughts. Yeah. There's hands, so you can choose. Yeah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I had a question regarding something you said about preaching. You mentioned that preaching can be just bringing someone closer to Krishna, and we often hear the saying that you can only love others as much as you love yourself. And I was wondering, is it still right to endeavor to bring or make attempts to bring others closer to Krishna when we ourselves are still struggling to get closer to Krishna?
Thank you so much. Yeah, this is also a common doubt, that sometimes we're out preaching Krishna consciousness and we feel a sense of imposter syndrome, like I haven't realized this, maybe I'm not even practicing this, and therefore should I even be here? In Kali Yuga, the last leg on which Dharma is standing is truthfulness. Truthfulness, being honest, being genuine. What you see is what you get. That is actually what inspires people more than anything. More than a perfect specimen, what people are looking for is a sincere sharer. And so what we can do in Krishna consciousness is say, there are things I've experienced, there are things that I've digested, there are changes that I've seen, there are things that I've implemented in my life that have worked. And how can we then go and share that with people in a very genuine and honest way? So to share Krishna consciousness doesn't mean that you have to have experienced everything. Just whatever you have experienced, shared in a genuine way from a heart of compassion, for the sincere benefit of the other person, that will go a long way. And yeah, and by sharing it with them, it also, this is the other beautiful thing about sharing Krishna consciousness, that we do upgrade our own spiritual realizations by going out in the world and sharing it with others. So it's kind of like this rhythm of life, you know, that you breathe out, you breathe in, you breathe out, you breathe in. So yeah, also see it as an opportunity for you to deepen your own self-realization, your own self-love, your own kind of depth of Krishna consciousness by sharing it with people, but in this kind of way, not in this kind of way. Yeah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for your lecture. My question, and both Braj and I share this question, is we want to be good leaders that are humble, but we also want to share with confidence. So what is the balance between humility and confidence in specifically this situation? How can we share what we've learned and show that this is what we've experienced and these are real experiences, but not diminish the other person's worldview or experiences as well?
Thank you so much. Yeah. So what's the balance between being humble and at the same time confidently sharing Krishna consciousness with conviction? A devotee should be quietly confident. Actually, a devotee's confidence comes from dependence on Krishna. In the material world, people's confidence comes from pride, from ego, from a false sense of who they are and what they can do. And that's what the world kind of pumps people up to be. But a devotee, their confidence comes from Krishna, comes from knowing that I'm an instrument, comes from knowing that I have experienced and received many things, but those many things have come from a grace beyond my own endeavor. And that's a way in which you can be confident and at the same time very, very humble, because your confidence comes from a place of divine recognition, knowing that I'm dependent on something higher than me and knowing that I've received from a place higher than me. And in that way, we kind of, Srila Prabhupada he was confident, he was bold. Srila Prabhupada once told Tamal Krishna Maharaj, humility means to act boldly for Krishna. So being confident and being convinced doesn't have to be antithetical to kind of being humble. In fact, those who are the most humble are the most confident and can be the most bold, because what they do is they take themselves out of the center and they act instrumentally. Does that help? Yeah.
Just a little more. So when I feel like I'm on top of the world and I feel super confident, how do I process that properly? How do I understand, like, this is like
it depends
Krishna?
Where your confidence is coming from. What is your confidence based on? If your confidence is based on your ability, if your confidence is based on your kind of your own qualifications, then that kind of confidence, it may help you for some time, but it won't last. When the going gets tough or in the long term, it will dwindle. But when one's confidence is Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna, Yatra Partho Dhanurdhara, wherever there is Krishna, the master of all mystics, and wherever there is the devotee, there will certainly Tatra, Shri, Vijayo, Bhutir, there will be victory, there will be morality, there will be extraordinary prosperity. Knowing that Krishna is on the chariot, Krishna is there. Krishna can do anything. So why limit him? I'm just the instrument. And therefore a devotee can do outrageous, like just be completely bold. I mean, it's outrageous what Prabhupada did. It's like, where do you get the confidence to do something like that? You know, you just kind of come all alone. But Prabhupada wrote, Krishna, you're the master of mystics. You can do anything. So if you like, make me a success or failure as you wish. I'm an instrument in your hands. Now if you've brought me here to dance, then make me dance, make me dance, make me dance as you like. So it's incredible. Devotees can just be so bold if they act for Krishna, because you take yourself out of the center. Does that help?
Thank you, Maharaj.
He answered my question.
Maharaj, I wanted to share, I think for me at the very beginning of, or, my younger age, I remember feeling that it was very dogmatic in the sense that I got a script of what you're supposed to do. It was like, okay, we're going to distribute books. Here's what you're supposed to say. Here's how you're supposed to do it. And it was very much that kind of preaching. And I was so uncomfortable by the whole process of it. I'm not a salesperson. That's what it felt like to me, to be a salesperson. And I didn't feel that connection to do that. And then as I read the books more, I thought, wow, this is fascinating. More people should know about this. And then I started understanding where the motivation comes, but still the sales part of it was not something I ever really wanted to do. And now as I've gotten older, I've had a different realization, which is that preaching really can look like anything, right? It's not like just distributing books. That's one way. For some people, that's like what comes naturally, what feels good. But for other people, it might be starting a podcast. Or it might be through art or through photography or videography, whatever it might be, and different ways of reaching others in this way. And I think that's kind of where I'm at and how I can appreciate the dynamic of Krishna consciousness and preaching in that way.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. Yeah, there's such a variety. Jai Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani ki. Shri Radha Giridhari ki. Travel to too many places. It's difficult. Yeah, there's so many ways. We used to go out on book distribution for me, and like it was the last thing I wanted to do when I started out. It was I was introvert, I was shy, and intercepting someone on the street, and the devotee just said like, don't worry, just tell them, I'm not a salesman, I'm not going to take your time. And I'm like, that's a lie. So it was tough. The interesting thing is I ended up doing it for like 12 years of my life. And I found a way to do it in which it was very genuine, in which I felt very authentic, and in which I felt I was really contributing. But when we used to go out on book distribution, then every evening we would come back, and there would be one devotee. And this devotee had temple service. They practically never left the temple. They were just always serving in the temple. But when we would come back from Sankirtan, they would always be like, how did it go? What happened out there? Tell me some stories. How many people took books? And they were so enthusiastic to find out like how the Sankirtan went. And I remember one day I just looked at one of the other book distributors and I said, he's a bigger book distributor than any of us, because it's that spirit. It's that spirit of wanting people to benefit. It's that spirit of wanting people to find what they've always been looking for. It's that spirit of wanting to share something that has touched us. And so, whether you're back in the temple, whether you do it on a podcast, whether you distribute books, it's the real spirit. It's the Sankirtan spirit. And it's that spirit that we have to exude in our movement. And then, like I said, the techniques and the strategies and the ways and means in which you share Krishna consciousness, it will come effortlessly. But it's that being moved by Krishna consciousness. We talk about the Krishna consciousness movement, And what that means is that Krishna consciousness should first be moving within us. When there's Krishna consciousness movement within our own consciousness, then the Krishna consciousness movement out there in the world really moves. So, yeah, thank you for sharing that. It's in no way, shape, or form stereotyped. Yeah, thank you. Maybe one last, and then we'll kind of finish there if there's any.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. I actually love the way you broke this down. We were having a very philosophical discussion in our van yesterday about religion and how other religions are. And another one I thought of maybe for this kind of board would be sectarianism versus universality. I was just thinking, our discussion was about whether other religions have the same chance to achieve liberation or moksha or whatever their end goal might be. But my question for you was, in Krishna consciousness, we have so many vidhis and rules, and at the same time we are supposed to have spontaneous love for Krishna. How do we balance the need for structure and discipline? And this is sort of a follow-up to what he was asking and what Rasa was asking, what Kirtan and Rasa were asking. How do we balance the need for structure and discipline without becoming rigid and dogmatic? And do you have examples of your own personal experience that you could share with us where you saw the transformation and of that?
Yeah, thank you so much. So there's structure. There's structure in our practice, and ultimately we're also trying to awaken spontaneity in our practice. And also sometimes there's structure in the way we preach and share Krishna consciousness, but we also want to do it from a deep space as well, and how does that work? Of course, in Sanskrit, we use the terms Vaidhi and Raga. Vaidhi means that which is done under rule and regulation, and Rag means that which is done in a very spontaneous way. And the interesting thing is that although Vaidhi and Raga are sequential, in one sense there's elements of each one in the other one. So that when you're doing Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, there's already some rag, there's already some attachment, there's already some attraction, some ruchi. And also when you're doing raganuga, then there is also structure to that. But the structure is not driving, it's just an expression of how that kind of feeling within one's heart. And so I think in that way, these two, again, don't have to be opposed. Sometimes having a structure can then help you to kind of really be spontaneous within that structure. Because to some extent, certain things have just been kind of laid out for you, so now you can just go free within that. I'm trying to think of an example of that. Like say, for example, like sometimes when I give a talk, what I do is, nowadays I don't come into a talk with notes, but beforehand I may make like 10 points. So what's happened is now in my mind I have somewhat of a structure. But then what that structure allows me to do is that when I then speak, I can just be very spontaneous around the structure that I've created, and the structure helps me to actually be more spontaneous. Otherwise, it's just like I'm all over the place, and it doesn't really amount to much. So I think there's a sense in which, even with preaching, like here, like say, for example, going out on book distribution, in the beginning, we may get lines like, say this, and if they say that, do that, and if they, argue this back, and ask for a donation like that. And sometimes we may feel that to be very kind of limiting. But we can also say, like, take it as a guideline. Rules and regulations are like they're helping us to stay on track. And then eventually, it's like at night time, you need to have those lights on the lanes so that you can stay in the lane. But as the kind of sun comes out, then eventually what happens is you're kind of driving on the road and you don't even really need to stay. You just automatically stay in the lane. and you kind of then just see all the scenery around you, and it's a lot more natural. So in that way, Vedi and Raga work together, and in terms of our practice and our preaching, and it's not one after the other, but the elements of both are intertwined within each one. Some thoughts. All right, thank you very much, everyone. Oh, one final one? Okay, sure.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, sorry. So, thank you so much for a wonderful class. I really liked what you said about when we share Krishna consciousness, we want to awaken inquisitiveness. So I was wondering if you could share some strategies about how we can do that, or some things you say to do that.
Yeah, this point of awakening inquisitiveness is such a powerful point. There's one Christian writer, he says that so much of my life I've been answering questions that people haven't been asking. And he says, when I answer questions that people haven't been asking, then what happens is that my answers go about 1 inch deep. He says, easily won knowledge which hasn't been kind of really sought after by the person, that kind of knowledge doesn't actually transform people. And therefore, he says, nowadays, instead of giving people answers, what I'm really focused on is getting people to ask the questions. Because asking the questions is like the fire of digestion, which will then help them to actually really benefit from that knowledge. And so even Srila Prabhupada, when he talked about BI, Bhaktivedanta Institute, he said the purpose of BI is just to plant a seed of doubt. Just get people doubting. And so I think a lot of Krishna consciousness is like that. Like, our answers make complete sense, but what we first need to do is just get people asking the right questions. And so getting people to be inquisitive means to getting them to reflect on their lives, questioning the way they do things, the goals they've set, the directions they've decided, asking them how much of your life is what you've consciously created and how much of it has just been impressed upon you. And these are all very neutral things that everyone can resonate with. And when we begin sharing Krishna consciousness from there, then what happens is then the natural questions which ensue from that doubt, we're just so blessed that we have incredible answers to them. So it's just about getting people to that point, to question things. Okay, thank you so much. All right, thank you much. Thank you very much, everyone. Really nice to be with you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. I think that was such a perfect culmination of all the keynotes that we've been listening to. We started with Radha Bhakti's foundation of sadhana, and then we progressed to Bhuta Bhavana Prabhu's holistic care of our mental, spiritual, and emotional needs. And now, like a wonderful culmination of how to utilize all that strength and boldness for Krishna and sharing with others and deepening the realization within ourselves. So thank you so much for that. We have a half-hour break at 12:15. We're going to meet in the Bhakti Lounge for a question-answer session with Ganesham Priya Das. And in the meantime, we have a little activity for y'all to participate in. There is a beautiful mural where we've been eating prasadam, and there's a wall with all of your names that you've beautifully written out. Some of you not so beautifully, but that's okay. So it's just a blank piece of paper with your names, and the goal is that it's an appreciation wall. So whoever names that you see that you've connected with during the retreat, you've had a little or big interaction with, write a little note of appreciation, a little thank you, an inside joke. Keep it appropriate. We will be monitoring, but it's just a nice way for you to kind of hear what other people have gotten from you, what you've received from others, and then at the end you get to take home a piece of paper that has everyone's thoughts and love for you. So make sure you can trickle throughout the day, write those things in, but now's a good time to start. Okay? And Raj is going to explain a little bit about Maharaj's books and his wonderful service in that way.
Thank you. So we have 4 of Maharaj's books available if anyone would like to come and have a look after. I'll just quickly go through what each of them are. So we've got Book Bhagavat on the left. Maharaj summarizes the whole Srimad Bhagavatam in this very concise book, but it's incredible because there's like a lot of concepts in the Srimad Bhagavatam can be quite complicated. If any of you have tried to read it, you can often get lost in it. And this can be used as a wonderful study guide for Srimad Bhagavatam. There's diagrams in there, there's really beautiful analogies. So it's quite incredible. We have Gita Free. Many of you who went on the other TSI trip, I believe, may have a copy of this already, but it's a great gift to give people as well. So if you've already got one, you can get another one. It's an incredible guide to life. So there's exercises in there for you to go through, different meditations, and it's very practical as well. We've got Tattva. If you don't already follow it, Maharaj has an incredible blog online. He posts on there quite regularly. It's called Tattva as well. This book is Tattva 2. In this book, Maharaj very beautifully answers a lot of life's most challenging questions. So I know many of us had questions today. Again, if you have any questions or if you want to be preaching to people who may have questions, this is a great book as Maharaj answers them so wonderfully. And finally, we have Gita Life, where Maharaj summarizes the whole Bhagavad Gita in acronym form. So each chapter has its own acronym. And in this book, Maharaj goes through the themes of each chapter through these acronyms. So they're all available. Book Bhagavad is $25, Gita Free is $12.50, Tattva is $14, and Gita Life is $11. We accept Apple Pay, so it's quite convenient for all of us. So please come and take a look. Again, great gifts for people and also very useful for each of us to have as we try and study more so we can preach more effectively. So thank you so much. We'll be there for about maybe half an hour during the break. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you, Raj Prabhu. And also just another gratitude to His Holiness Keshava Swami Maharaj for being here with us. And yeah, Kunja Sevika had the right idea. Left arm in the air, right arm in the air. So very loudly, 3 very loud Haribos for His Holiness Keshava Maharaj. 3, 2, 1. His Holiness Keshava Maharaj will be joining us for Harinam this evening as well. So that'll be an ecstatic, practical application. Let's see if we're preaching dogmatic religion or dynamic spirituality on that. But yes, so please be there for that. But now, yes, like Shruti said, 20-30 minute break. Hari Bol, Hare Krishna.